Y'all, dude, we're live. Are you ready for this? I hope you're ready for this.
I hope they're ready.
Yeah, so little backstory. Grant is awesome, if y'all didn't know. The lighting in the room is going to suck for me. You can tell his lighting is great. He's got his whole setup there because he's a professional at this. Grant, I think we've known each other a year and a half, something like that, through Facebook, have never, ever met in person. But I'm going to berate you tonight to come to the Drag and Drive event in April, whether you want to or not. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody where they can find you, and I'll gather some stuff, because what they don't know is that I've been sitting in the chair for about 4 minutes. So I have nothing prepared.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I think my first real introduction to you was you showed up in Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0 2020. And I was like, hey, look at this Grand Marquis exoskeleton. It's the Crown Vic version of Leroy. But anyway, I'm Grant Tommy. I'm my channel name is Str8six Fan here on YouTube. That's where you can find me. But yeah, I think that was my first exposure to you, Michael. And then you popped up in one of those Facebook groups. I think soon thereafter, I was like, oh, holy crap, I know him, but I don't know him.
Yeah, dude, I had to once I started really pushing on YouTube. I found Central States YouTuber or Central State Region YouTuber, something like that.
Automotive YouTubers.
There you go. Because that's the big thing. We want to stay automotive because, that's what we're all into. We can all help each other. And so obviously when I joined that, it was on like gangbusters. I've bothered you ever since.
Yeah, and I didn't think I was going to rant on anything this early in the, in the show, but no, that's the group I founded and I started. The intent of it was meant to be just like, so I put a 6-hour radius around Kansas City, and just so people can see who's in their backyard for collaborations and stuff, because I feel like collaborations is such a great growth hack that it's all it. And if you do it right, in theory, because I've done some where you leave and the other guy's like, oh man, I didn't even think to pick up my camera, and it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of how it was supposed to go. Like we were supposed to be able to send each other footage and stuff like that. But so I think as each member's added, and I think we've crested 30. I think we're close to 40 members, which is a good size group. But I just feel like the intent of me starting it was for that. I don't know that a lot of that's happened through that group, but.
Yeah, sadly, first part of last year, I was like, listen, if you're within 3 hours of me, I'll do a collab with you. I'll bring the old truck or I'll bring the cart. And I think I did that twice. So yeah. I'll blame myself on some of that because I'm with you, dude. Collaborations are definitely a great way to grow the channel. And we're going to talk about some YouTube stuff. As I said earlier, I have nothing prepared. But I figure with as much time as you've been on camera and you've seen some of my stuff, what we're going to talk about, and so it's going to be fun. Dudes with Wrenches just popped in here, said what's up, so I want to say hi to him. But first I got to thank the people that made this room right here possible. First sponsor that I want to thank is Andy's Computer Repair. Without those guys, I wouldn't have the internet out here in the shop, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to build this room that I can almost touch wall to wall with my wingspan there. And Hawassi Tire and Lube keeps us in tires all the time. I feel bad for that guy because we're going back out again this week to get more tires for the old truck because we have crossed 3,000 subscribers, and that means a revisit to the 300-foot burnout. So we're going to try it again. If I break something this time, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be, I'm just going to stay in it and we're going to blow shit up. So, and then also I want to thank the people that donated to make this room a possibility as fast as it would have. I really, really appreciate these folks. We made a post on Facebook. Hey, we're building this. Can you help? And they did. They came in droves. And so I've got it written down over here so I can remember it. Dino Cardella, Donovan Green, Tyler Petrum, Tom Stark, who just left PRI. I think I want to try to have him back on, and him and Blaine, to talk about their PRI experience. Matt Monroe, Big Blocks Garage, who I saw this morning. If everybody was following on Instagram, you saw the post. We're going to do a full walk around of his D100. And then Ryan Wing, Streetcar Chronicles, who's on tomorrow night as part of the 12 Pods of Christmas. And then Big Bad Daddy, the Cowboy Yankee, John Murat. He doesn't like it when I mess that up. So, he gave some money. He put that in as a stipulation. I said, let's go. So I'll kind of explain the 12 Pods of Christmas. Basically, we're going live every day from here until the 23rd. So thank you for being the dude that kicks it off. I'm excited about that because yours and Jason's is a live stream that I watch every week. When you guys run 2 seasons a year, which is what, 16 weeks each, something like that.
Yeah, so it's or 18. So it's 18 on, 8 weeks off, and then 18 on and eight off. So it works out pretty nice for us.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's a great show. You guys have great guests. I mean, I've been on there. I was a guest host one time. I was a guest host before I was a guest. So I don't know if that says something about me, but maybe it does. I don't know. So Richard Edward, Dirty Panda on YouTube, want to say hi to you. And then Turtle's Garage, what's up, dude? He was also on for a quick 16. Turtle, I may reach out to you and discuss some closer to the end of like 1222, 1223 about you being on for a long format like we got going on right here. Okay, enough of my blabbering. Dude, let's talk about you because that's what everybody's here for.
Well, just so Turlo knows, this is some fan mail he sent me in my hand right here. I would open it up on screen, but I probably owe him he's a good dude. I probably owe him a full blown video. But no, it's a pleasure to help you kick off the 12 pods of Christmas, as well as congrats on the 3K subscribers.
Yeah, dude, it's exciting. I jumped on a couple live streams the other night, one with CP the Tool Addict and Wasted Talent Fabrications. Those guys helped me get over that. I did see Danny Fatka in here. He is the reason we are doing the 12 pods of Christmas. He sent me a message and was like, dude, what about this idea? And I was like, you're the man, I'm in. So Carl Steamy's in here. I want to say hi to him. He's a fellow race weeker. So let's start. Dude, how long have you been a car guy?
So the story I always tell is I owe it to, so I'm 36, born in 85, and the impressionable age, when we're all buying our Lamborghini Countach posters to put on the wall in our bedrooms and stuff, that's about the time Tim Allen was building the 32 Ford Roadster on Home Improvement, and I think that was the original appeal. That's kind of what I credit to at that point in time, and then also Family Matters. Carl Winslow brings home an old cop car for him and Eddie to fix up. So I think there was just this crossroads of all those things. I grew up in the country, so I was around tractors all the time. As a kid, I was always drawing tractors. So I was motors and things like that. And I think that became the crossroads. And there's another, one of my really good friends from elementary school, his older brother restored a 68 Camaro. And it was this this midnight blue. It was such an awesome, and so if you're thinking about it, 1999, that's restoring a 30-year-old car. So if we were restoring a 30-year-old car now, it'd be a 1991 Thunderbird, God, right?
Don't say it.
So I get, and just this appeal, man, that would be so cool to just build something for you that's a part of your personality, and I think that's kind of how I got into it.
That's cool, dude. Seeing all the comments here, I'll run through them, but I want to thank Turtle's Garage for the donation. I'll try and bring some of this stuff up as we go along, but if everybody has noticed, I haven't posted anything on Facebook in 4 days, so I had no chance. I couldn't even post to the Narcs Electric page because I was banned because I told 815 LSX Swaps I was going to punch him in the wiener when I saw him next, and they banned me for 7 days. So after I get off of my ban on Wednesday, I'm going to flood everybody with 12 positive Christmas as we did that. So, all right. So Camaro, what I wish had happened with Home Improvement, because I will turn 41 in March, so I'm 5 years older than you. I wanted more garage time with Tim Allen. I wanted more.
There, I'll get the word out on Instagram for you while you're banned. So.
Thanks, man. So I'm not banned on Instagram, which is the craziest thing, but I'm definitely banned on Facebook, and it's pissed me off. And I've moved a lot of this stuff, a lot of my posting to another app that we're going to talk about later. But so I wish they had done more, in the garage with the boys, kind of they could have leaned into that. I feel like a whole bunch more than what they did on Home Improvement.
The other interesting part about just that point in time and that show and all that stuff was, they had like Boyd Coddington was a guest, and he had that canary yellow roadster he was building at the time. And I remember, reading about that thing in Hot Rod magazine. So that was the other part of, my intro into cardom was my older brother started subscribing to Hot Rod magazine about 97-ish. And then I subscribed to Carcraft, and so that was always my obsession, was right after and for Peterson's 4-wheel drive and off-road. So I followed Freiberger as editor from there to Carcraft. And so, when I see how Roadkill blew up, it's like, man, he's just like he's been doing this for 20 years at this point, you know, or whatever. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think they could have done more on the car builds and stuff. And you know, as soon as he like sold it on the show, they realized that was such a part of the show that he had to then build a 46 that he turned into convertible or something. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, that was such a great show, and I've watched some of his new stuff. Do you follow him on YouTube?
I follow him on Twitter for sure, and then he had this ridiculous build he was doing, and I remember I think I watched like one of the first videos, and I was just like, man, this is way too far. Like, this is in too deep that it's just not interesting to me. Because it's just like so like, and I don't think he was doing any of the work. Like, he was paying a shop to do it, and like, this is just not relatable for me.
Right. So he's been building for 3 years. Literally, like, his daughter goes every week and gets an update video put together from Bodie Stroud Industries. Are building like this 32 or 34 that's EV converted and everything. And they've been on it for 3 years with a weekly video. So a lot of times I'll let it go like 3 or 4 months, and then I'll just cram it in. You know, I'll watch every video because they're like 8 or 9 minutes long. Oh, I need more video, you know, I need more content from it. But it's a really good build, and they go into a lot of, you know, why they're building it, why they changed. They had just a small block Ford planned for it, and then they did EV and all that kind of stuff. So,
where is that shop located at, by the way? Because
it's LA.
LA, okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was like somewhere like way far off, and I'm just like, I mean, this is impressive, but it's just like, I don't know. There were just a bunch of. It seemed like it was just so unrelatable when I watched. But.
Yeah, and like early on, like I've watched literally every episode. It's like, oh my God, why? I watched like 40 of them to begin with to catch up, you know. And the funny part is, like, it really does take that long to build that caliber of car. But like, I'm ready for some future editing now. I'm ready for like let it pile up for 3 months and then let me see some videos of some, because it's like she'll go in and they'll have the week before made a fender, and then this week they're flattening the fender. You know what I mean? Like, they work on it every day, but you just don't get that far in hand shaking and all that kind of stuff. So
it does make you appreciate, like, I know everybody wants to say, like, you know, you'll get the typical person, or not typical, but every so often in these chats, you'll get someone in chats like just thrashing on, like, you know, how they produce Kindig or Welder Up or whatever. And but it's like, yeah, I know, like, they edit out a lot of the struggles and all the hard times that we go through, but at the same time, like, let's be honest, who wants to watch that? Like, which one do you think is more appealing to the masses? Which one do you think has more entertainment value? The Saturday.
I want to see something finished.
Yeah, the Saturday that blew up on them, and like they literally, like, because we've all had those days at work where you show up and you're like, hey, I'm gonna get this, and this hammered out, and then something gets in the way, and you walk out from work that day, and you're like, can't believe I spent 12 hours on a brake line, on just routing brake lines or whatever. Like, so do you really want to watch the 12-hour struggle of routing brake lines? Like, no, you want to watch the whole thing come together.
That's exactly right. Hey, Rich, GT350R. Justin Chestnut's in here. I'm meeting with him for Sick Week in February. I want to say thanks to that dude. He's going to be a great host. He doesn't know what I'm bringing. It's going to be. I'm excited. Okay, so you know you're a car guy early on. What was your first car? What did you drive first?
Well, the first vehicle I drove, period, was a 1984 Ford Ranger with a 2.2 liter Perkins diesel in it. Perkins, yeah, Perkins. Which it's so let me put it this way: it's 0 to 60 was faster than its quarter mile time.
So. That's awesome.
But yeah, my first vehicle though that like I drove to school consistently was a 95 Ford F-150 with the 300 inline six, hence the name Str8six Fan. The name Str8six Fan comes from like junior year in high school. That was my truck. It was you know, I'm not gonna like complain. My parents bought it for me. It was an old construction truck. Bought it off the company that my dad works for, construction. So you know, they were putting it out to the pasture anyway. So my parents bought it off. But you know, not single cab, long bed, contractor special, you know, lowest trim level, nothing that like as a high school kid you're like, oh man,
this is it.
Yeah, you know,
up so many ladies in this.
So I just kind of like embraced that, and it's like, okay, well, it's up to me to make it cool. So hence the name Str8six Fan. It's kind of just a tribute to my first vehicle.
That's awesome. Yeah, Rich GT350R. They're saying 0 to 60 in 17 minutes.
I think that might actually be, it may have been closer to like in the 20s or 30s. Like, I'm not even kidding you.
It's like, oh my God, come on.
Yeah.
Pull this hill.
Like, I will tell, and it's flat here in Kansas too. So when I say pull this hill, it's like, it's really not a hill. But like when you wound up getting stopped at a stoplight and you were the first, you're like, oh no. It's like you wanted to be like 3 or 4 cars back, not the first one, because you could just see how you're holding traffic up. And then
I am going.
And then the other fun part about it was at some point, so it was just the truck that, like, it was like the last truck my dad bought for himself before he switched jobs to this construction company. So then he had a company truck, from there on out.
Yeah.
So it sat in the yard and it had like a slow oil leak. And then but like we didn't recognize it had a slow oil leak until it was too late, right? So it would just smoke really ridiculously bad, like white smoke, like probably because it's going past smoke rings, kind of.
Yeah.
So like on a really cold morning, like when you sat there idling at an intersection, like literally, I mean, you would just. We were rolling coal before it was cool. You were just filling up this intersection, and then when you took out, like I remember one day driving to school and seeing just 2 headlights. You could barely see the headlights poking out of the smoke behind you.
That's awesome. I want to say hey to Mississippi Hippie here. He said so the Blazer he's referring to in high school had a 2-door 2-wheel drive little S10, like an 88 model or something, whatever the square body style was, and it had a V8 in it. It was a lot of fun. I did a turbo 350 swap and all this. It had 3-inch dual chamber flows on it, which is like a 40 series now, I think. It was so loud, just insanely loud, but it was great. It was a perfect high school rig. Still open wheel. If I had known how to weld then, we'd have welded that diff up in a heartbeat. And I'd have been like Nico, who popped in here. We'd have been busting 7.5s like crazy. But he says I should recreate that ride. We had actually discussed that. I think at some point in my near future, we'll probably do a round body style, but I would like to do basically copy the old truck turbo setup and throw it in something like that, because it's easy to get the fan in and out of. So,
well, it's funny he makes that comment because I see a few comments up above that is Carl Steamy says he has a 95 F-150 300, and then so if you haven't seen my channel yet, Carl, go check it out because the number I don't know 3-4 episodes back, or it's probably more than that, like 6. I bought back my high school truck. I found after 13 years. I sold it 13 years ago, and then so like my dad got it brand new in '95, and I sold it in 2008. So it was in our family for 13 years. When I let go of it when I graduated college, because it was $4 a gallon gas summer that year. So I sold it before I took my first job. This other guy wound up living in the county that we eventually moved to. He kept it for 13 years, and then he found me because of YouTube. And I bought back my original truck. So,
dude, that's great. And so in that video, you guys had another truck like that, right? And you were kind of moving some parts around. Is that right?
Yeah. So then that becomes like two or 3 episodes further down the line. My parents did the same thing for my little brother. Bought another company truck off of the construction company. It was a '94 F-150, and when I saw the condition that mine was in, I was like, man, it makes way more sense instead of like swapping body panels off of mom and dad's truck onto that one. It makes way more sense to swap the good interior parts into my mom and dad's truck and other miscellaneous stuff. So yeah, it just made more sense. In fact, I just came back from mom and dad's today. I yanked the headliner out of their truck. I'm going to reupholster that for them for Christmas. And yeah, so it's a donor parts truck for their other truck right now.
That's cool. So what's the plan for your truck then? Eventually just go crazy with it?
The plan the plan is just to yank the motor out of it. And I'll probably let the cat out of the bag here because I guess
because nobody's watching anyways.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, like, because the crossover, like, if you made it here, you get the inside scoop. I've been keeping it pretty tight-lipped on my channel because I'm always afraid of, like, just something won't pan out. And then I hyped this thing up for everybody, and then they're let down when it doesn't happen. But so I want to yank the motor out, and I want to do a build very akin to that Power Nation build where they turbocharged it and got 500 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque. I probably won't replicate it exactly, but I'm thinking it'll be a probably minimum 350 horsepower build, 450 foot-pounds torque, and I want to build a rat rod around that motor. So my first rat rod that I build will be built the heart and soul of it will come from my first vehicle, and I want to yank it awesome. It's got a 8.8 rear in it, so I'd like to yank that, and it's a track lock with 355 gears. So things like that. Like I want to harvest as many parts as I can off of my first truck to build my first rat rod.
Oh, there you go. That's cool, dude. I dig that. That's neat. So that kind of explains the Str8six Fan stuff. What does that mean as far as channel? Like what? Like are you gonna lean more into some 6-cylinder?
Yeah. So that's if I'm 5-year plan, 10-year plan, calling it, like I got to the point. Well, so let me back up.
Yeah, let's tell them about Low Fairmont, and then we'll go.
Well, that weaves in there. That weaves in there together. So I kind of got into it when I was telling you where the name came from in high school. It just meant to embrace like the build what you got mentality, that car craft. Like, yeah, the 95 long bed, single cab, 2-wheel drive wasn't like first preference, but just build what you got, like make it as cool as possible. So that spun into what I call offbeat hot rodding. So it's not like your, again, first choice. It's not like Class A or even Class B. Sometimes we're talking building the Class C thing, right? So that's what Str8six Fan's about, and that's what my channel's about. And yes, Project Low Fairmont was meant to be, everybody probably, most people in this chat probably know, it's a Fox body. So the appeal is that to find a car in the shape that it was in at that era for $1,800, like it was in a pretty sweet condition for $1,800, you would never find a 79 Mustang with a 302 in it in that same condition for $1,800. So that's what Project Low Fairmont was, and everybody knows, like, obviously there's a ton of 5-liter era Mustang guys build it. So like finding used parts made it an accessible, a cheap, easy build. And that's what I was trying to show. Like if you don't have, everybody wants to, I know you'll probably mention LS swap at some point, but if you don't have the capabilities to do a motor swap where you're at, like that's what the build was supposed to be about, to show you how cool you can make a car that you don't have to pull the motor. Like that's what Str8six Fan was. I didn't like that I had an inline 6 in my F-150, but it was impractical as a high schooler to pull the motor and put a V8 in. That's what Project Low Fairmont was all about, doing it on a budget. And, we didn't get into, I did a head swap, which it's like, you're not really touching internals, quote unquote, at that point, but it's a little higher level than bolt on. So that's what that build was meant to be all about. Yeah,
I love that build because I say it so many times, and I've told Dirty Panda this a bunch, Richard Edwards, that like just do it, just get it running. Freiberger says it don't have to be right, just running, just get it, have some fun. Because how many people have you seen? Like that car is a great example of someone wants to build something fast. Okay, I'm gonna put it like this because like fast is a relative term. Fast to me is I can leave a stoplight and do burnouts. Like that's fun. It sounds good. The car, it sounds good. It's fast. Spins the tires. Probably runs like a 14.5, right? But it'll do 100 and it'll stop. So, but how many guys have bought that car and have seen somebody that made 1,000 horsepower out of a turbo LS in a Fairmont? And they're like, I gotta have that. I gotta have the 1,000 horsepower LS swapped Fairmont. Now, to take a small block Ford to that kind of power, it's gonna be crazy. Oh yeah, Kansas. Yeah, he's closer to Kansas City, I would say, than Wichita. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yep.
So, but how many times has somebody got that car home, pulled the motor out, and then the car sits for 2 years while they gather parts? Really, it means lose interest. And then they sell it, and it's got no motor and trans because they sold it immediately to fund their LS swap. And then they never finish it. Oh, man, we're going a different direction. I lost interest. I don't have the money.
Yeah.
When the whole time they could have been driving that car, hit it with 100 shot as you leave the stop sign and do a big burnout while you gather parts. So that's what I like about your channel. That's what I liked about that build for sure. it was just kind of leaning into that. You can do this, and the car sounded great, and it did good burnouts. Like, what else do you need?
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. Like, what I also love about it, if you watch Engine Masters a lot, like, I think I want to say it was spawned off of one of those Motorhome 440 episodes, but Dulcich, I think it was Dulcich, talks about, like, well, what's the number one problem with this era motor? It's like, it's got a crappy camshaft and it's got low compression. And that's exactly what my car is. So where would you attack it first to pick up more horsepower? Well, where it's at its weakest, like the low compression side or the camshaft. And I didn't put a camshaft in. It still has if I looked up the cam specs again, I mean, it's just like, really,
that's no lift at all. It's like round.
Yeah, it's like they shoved a log in there, like, but the GT40P head swap, I tried finding compression calculators to do it, but I never found a good solid one where I knew exactly what I was doing. But I suspect I moved it up from I think it was, I want to say it's 8-4-1 stock that we've probably at least crested. Like, I suspect it's right around 9, a 9-to-1 compression now. Yeah. And I mean, if you haven't watched my videos, it went from a 12-second 0 to 60 car to a basically 8-second flat. So after I was done.
I mean, think about how much faster you made that car for relatively low money. And is that car still for sale, or have you sold it?
It is. Yep.
Oh yeah. So it is for sale, or it is sold.
It's for sale. Yeah. Yes. I have potentially one person coming to look at it this week, but
nice.
Yeah, haven't had. I've had the gamut of the usual. Any trades? No. I'll trade it with cash is usually what I usually reply, and then
I don't need your broke down junk. Please stay away.
And then I had the other one was like, asks a simple question. So I always reciprocate on these things. Like, if you gave me a worthwhile question, I'll give you a worthwhile answer. If you gave me a 2-word question, I'll give you a 2-word answer. Is how I handle those things. And one was like, is it a 302 car? Yes, it is. Would you take 4,000 for it? Nope. Really, like that. Your conversation starter, you got right into the negotiating after the first answer, and then I always respond back to people. It's like, look, there's, I'll be honest about it, and I say it on my channel. If you watch all my videos, I basically spent right at $5,000. That's it, and I'll be transparent about that. If I get my money out of it, great. If I don't, I'll just keep it longer. Is kind of my approach. And so I'm upfront with everybody that, there's wiggle room in that price. And, but I always say, like, if you negotiate here in Messenger before you come out and look at it, like, just know that once you show up, you've waived your right to negotiate further. And
right.
So it's like, I would prefer you rather come out and look at it first and we do it in person, and that usually turns people around pretty quickly.
Yeah, everybody's running through their comments here. 815 entered. Does that mean you're interested? Like, I'm sure it's about messages. Got any more pictures? Oh God, yeah. I put 14 on the listing. I mean, come on. And this one's my favorite. Still available? Like, what? Yeah. If it's up, it's there. And then Carl Steamy hits the nail on the head. That guy don't have $4,000 usually.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, well, I get paid on Friday. Can I bring some money then? No, bro, you can send me some money right now, and I'll hold it till Friday. But it ain't getting back to you.
Yeah. It hasn't been too bad yet. I've just really gotten kind of one of each. No duplicates yet.
That's funny. Yeah, that's a really nice car. The interior on that car is so cool. It's like a houndstooth seat, right? Like that's this.
Yeah, close to. It's more plaid, but yeah, I could see where you get that sensation if you're not looking like close
right
up.
On it. That's cool. If I had been thinking about it, I'd have brought up some pictures, but I didn't.
There.
Somebody in here needs to own that. Dude, Justin, if you buy this, I'll drive it to you. I
would love that it goes to another YouTuber, like, honestly, because it'd be fun to just watch. Okay, I took it to a certain point, and this is my take on it, but see just the history,
Yeah.
Like, one of the cool things too, when I was redoing the interior on it, it was just the headliner and carpet, really. But so I pulled the seats out, and when I pulled the passenger seat out, that's where I found the original build sheet tucked in the under springs in the underside. So I put it back when I put it back in, but it was really cool to unfold it, and try to find out all the information about it. And So it rolled off the assembly line in May of 1977. And I was getting really excited because my parents got married in May of 1977. So I was like, how cool would it be if it was like the same day? Like, but it wasn't. If it was, I'd probably be keeping it for sure at that.
I mean, that's pretty close though. Like, dude, you end up randomly. Where did you find that car?
It was up the road in Leavenworth, Kansas.
Cool.
So that's where my wife works, and once a week I'd go work out there, and then we went to, just on a random Saturday, we went to because it was further up than where I would ever drive. We went to a farmer's market, and I was like, wait a second, that's like ideal. And it's funny because I'd been saving up money for a project car for quite some time, and I'd put together this list of 10 criteria that was like, so I am a Ford guy at heart, and yet I always wanted to do a Fairmont, but it wasn't like I was dead set on it had to be a Ford Fairmont. I was just looking for, I have this obsession with the OPEC era car, just because they're overlooked, and I feel like it's another one of those things, because my brother had a 77, I see the comment, Nova in high school. So I kind of have this affection for it's this lost era of cars that I feel like are in good shape because nobody molested them 5 times over like a 69 Camaro. And they're rear wheel drive V8 cars. Whereas, when I was in high school, early 2000s, like the 80s and 90s were so dominated by front wheel drive. Like you just didn't really have much to choose from. So I just love these big body, and I think they're just a circumstance of their time. The engineers just kind of flipped out and just took the path of least resistance just to solve the problems that the government was putting on them. And so the grotesque bumpers were just they weren't thinking through how to make them look good. And they just we gotta okay, this is the rule. We got to meet the rule. So here, and same thing with the motors. It's so we got these, what do we do with this 454? Oh, give it 7-to-1 compression. They were like,
we need another 2 miles a gallon. What do we do? Yeah. Throw a 273 gear in the back. And drop the compression 2 points.
So I go look at the car. I actually chickened out on buying the car. I went and test drove it, and it stalled. The car probably just wasn't set up right, and it just fell on its face and stalled, and it had the drains were clogged in the door, and so I could hear water sloshing around in the door, and I'm just oh gosh, this thing's got to be something's got to be seriously wrong with this car. So I walked away from it actually, but I went back and I sent it through my matrix, which said if the car was going to score an 8 out of 10 or above, it was you shouldn't walk away from it. If it was a 7 out of 10, I'd have to think about it, a little further kind of thing. But this thing basically scored either a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. It's dude, what are you?
What are you doing? And it's in the budget. Bring it on.
Yeah. So, it was, I think he had it listed at, this is the best negotiating I've ever done in my life. It was listed at $2,200. I walked away from the car. We had to go on a family vacation, and the guy reached out to me while I was on vacation and was like, hey, if I dropped it to $1,800, would you be interested? I was like, I'll be there on Monday.
He's like, listen, nobody has looked at this thing. Do you want it? Please come get it. Yeah. That's awesome. 815, yes, PRI 2022. Yeah, we are going. I hate that I missed it this year. With as many people as went and all the fun it looks like everybody had. 815 has a full video on his one day there. So it's PRI is a blast. And then Dudes with Wrenches says he's in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, because everyone drove 60s and 70s cars to high school. New stuff was 80s in high school. I think he's around our same age. Oh, yeah, he says I'm the same age as Grant. So,
yeah, I'm trying to think of what the majority of what people were driving at my high school. I was graduated with 225-ish. I would say a lot of people had 90s cars.
Yeah.
80s to 90s cars. But, yeah, I graduated high school in 03, and I probably actually had one of the newer cars as a 95, so in 2001, but it had 138,000 miles on it, and the bed was beat to crap, so yeah.
I think we had a good mix. We had a lot of street cars. We had a bunch of Fox Body Mustangs and the Blazer I drove and things. We did a lot of street racing back then. And I graduated in '99, so same kind of stuff, late '80s, early '90s stuff.
I'm trying to think of the coolest cars I can remember of people in my class. One guy had probably like a 2001 S10 that he lowered, but it was the lowest like trim level, but 4-cylinder 5-speed, but it's still pretty cool. You know that maybe it's more like a 99 because it had the headlights with that kind of like recessed in, but they had the kind of 80 Malibu like corner blinker style look thing, and then a Mark 8. Someone had a Mark 8, and he was like kind of a computer nerd guy, but he was into cars too. But he was doing all these like hacks. Like I remember because the mufflers were on the very end, like right at the tailpipe, and he just drilled holes in the tail end of his muffler, like to make it louder.
Yes.
And then he figured out how to wire the airbags to deflate them. So he lowered it, and he did something he did all these kind of hack job things. And
that's awesome. That dude now builds $200,000 cars or something crazy.
Probably.
Carl Stevie said his high school car was an AMC Ambassador, 4-wheel birth control. That's hilarious.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Nico had an '88 T-top Camaro. Oh man, 305 TBI. Whew. And he graduated in 2008. So he probably had the oldest car at school. And then Dudes with Wrenches drove a 72 GMC with 6-inch lift. That's pretty cool.
There was just recently, if the Fairmont was sold, it'd actually probably be really hard for me to pass this up. One of my friends sent me a marketplace listing here locally for a 1980 AMC. Is it Sprint or Spirit? I always get it. It's basically the next generation of the Gremlin. Like they rebranded the Gremlin in 1980. Yeah. But it was super clean, just like my Fairmont was, and it's got of course the AMC inline 6 in it. And it's actually, this is what I do to that car. Is this?
Yes, that looks good, dude.
This was my just
dang, a YouTuber, wrencher, and artist.
Yep. I mean, that's Chip Foose. Was kind of my dream job always, was to be that guy.
Awesome.
Draw it, build it, drive it.
Yep. Justin said he had a '66 C10 in high school. That's what I started driving, was the old truck. And then 815, who LS swaps every Mustang he has now, I had a 4-cylinder 85 that caught fire in the parking lot. So that's always a great way to be known. Oh, you're the guy that the car burned down to the ground. Yeah, that's great. Danny, wow, 68 Dodge Dart. That's cool. Yeah, Dudes with Wrenches drove a '76 Gremlin. Wow.
Speaking of Gremlins, I don't know who it is, but I think they bought it's like this metallic green, gold wheels. I don't know if you've seen this build, but they also cut the front fenders up, and they moved the fender well up. It just really changes the proportions. And I think they got a Roadster shop chassis that from a Mustang, and then they shortened it to fit the wheelbase. And this thing's just an autocrossing beast. So it's one of my all-time favorite cars.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find that. Then that's right up my alley. I kind of like that.
I'm a big pro touring dork. That's everything. If I'm building it, it's got to have no smaller than 17s on it, and small sidewalls, and good suspension.
Yep, big brakes, big wheels, big brakes. Yep, turns, corn. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. What would be your I don't want to say dream build, but what would be something that you're yes, that's what I want to build?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, because it's you just catch me on which way I'm going to answer that, because like I said, I've got this sketchbook full ideas. I mean, this is my 70 or 81 Trans Am ideas, and I think there's a Plymouth Volare in here.
Yes.
So, but being the Ford guy that I am, if someone's look, you only get one more chance to build something, it'd probably wind up being a Ford. But I always pictured myself for the family cruiser, I'd want a 66, 67. I can't ever get the body name right. I can't keep but basically the Fairlane, but the wagon version.
Yeah.
So jet black, slammed, of course. Maybe a Coyote in it. If it's just to have something different muscle car, it's probably going to be a Torino, and it's probably going to be older I get, the more I like the 68s than I once thought.
Yeah.
But I also like the 72, again, offbeat hot rodding. I like the 72 like bass fishing mouth Torinos.
That's cool, man.
But then I also like, when we get further in the 70s, I'd love to do a Comet or a Maverick. Just, it's probably one of those three cars if I could only build one.
Yeah, that's the good thing. You got plenty of time. You can build as many as you want.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So why did you start recording for YouTube? What have you learned over your however long you've been YouTubing? I mean, I think I followed you for, like I said earlier, 18 months, 2 years, something like that.
So it was a coworker of mine that got me into it. At the time I was doing podcasting. I had a college football podcast, and he was asking me if there was any way I can monetize that or if I made money at that. And I said, well, no, not really. I mean, I had some sponsors that helped me cover the operating costs, and I just exchanged like live reads for their money, And so he started telling me about, did YouTube. His channel's Greg's Garage, and it actually kind of blew up and became something pretty big. But so he kind of got me into it, and I had, again, been saving up money for a project car. So this was leading up to the Fairmont, but for the first maybe almost 3 years, I don't know, I was building it was also a point to force me to have projects, right? And so my first build on the channel was my Rat Rod Radio Flyer wagon, which is it's a go-kart that I built out of a Radio Flyer wagon. It's got a 5-horse Briggs in the front, and like I-beam front suspension, and all sorts of jack shafts and chains everywhere to get it all the way to the back. But that's kind of the origins of my channel, is the building the go-kart. And it was just kind of leading up to, because the other thing was I didn't have a lot of space in my garage. It's like, well, I was done with excuses at that point in my life and ready to start just getting my hands dirty and fabricating and learning how to do things. And so, Rat Rod Radio Flyer was the start. Yeah,
man, that's cool. And then, I mean, your viewership is always growing. I always look over there, and it's like your stuff just keeps easing up. It's so awesome. I mean, it's because you put out good content. You build cool cars, and I really like the offbeat hot rodding thing, because I think as we move forward in the hot rod world, people will start seeing, like, it's what happened to my old truck. So for a long time, nobody knew the underpinnings of that first gen C10 were the same as the square bodies and the 67 to 72. So nobody messed with those trucks. And I liked that part of it, because you could pull into a parking lot and everybody's like, oh, damn, that's a different truck. How'd you lower it? And you're like, well, it's the same thing as a regular C10. They're like, oh, well, then, fast forward 4 or 5 years later, and now, like, that body style had a big resurgence, and a lot of people built them over the couple of years. And now everybody's kind of trying to find their own offbeat, thing. They want to be different. That's cool, man. I like that.
Well, and I think that also, like in high school, running around with my friends who were car guys too, like we'd go to, it was Backyard Burgers at the time. I don't know if they have those down in Arkansas, but they always had cruisins. That was the cruising place. And then at some point, though, you get burnt out on going to car shows, because, like, okay, I've seen it enough, 66 Mustangs, 69 Camaros, 69 Novas, the A bodies, I don't know if you remember Car Guy and 6 Fan Show. I think it was, it may have been the start of last year. We did like, I was poking fun at, like, when you go to baseball games, like the hot dog relish mustard race, but we were doing it with GMA bodies that weren't Chevelles. Like, I'm way more interested in, a Cutlass or a Skylark than I am a Chevelle. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're good looking cars, but it's like, I would rather be the guy who stands out because I'm rolling up in a Buick Skylark than a Chevelle.
Well, and that's one thing, having patina is a big deal, and what ends up happening is, if you are parked next to a car that is that, A-level car, and you're next to it with the same-ish body style, but maybe not quite as nice, I guarantee you're going to talk to more people than that dude that has a really nice car. Because people are like, oh, I can attain that. I can build that, when they may not be able to, but they feel like the Offbeat stuff. And plus, there's a lot of folks like, oh man, so and so I knew had that car and then, and I think that's just what makes it so much more fun. There's a lot of times where people don't remember that their friend had a 68 Camaro or a 66 Mustang and things like that. Like they just knew they had them. That was it. But somebody that had like a Fairmont with a healthy 302, people are going to remember that.
Yeah. Well, that's the other, like, I honestly, if it's not a YouTuber that buys my Fairmont, I hope it's like a high school kid, because I think it's the right amount of like, it's not going to get them into trouble, kind of like, but fast and fun and like, those good burnouts. So
yeah, dude, I'm telling you, that's like so many people on Facebook now miss that because they see all these 800 horsepower builds and they're like, I got to make 800 to be cool and all that stuff. Dude, 400 wheel horsepower, a big converter, and just do dumb burnouts, man. Like, and have fun. Build an 800 horsepower setup as your second project car. But the first one, it doesn't have to be that. Like drive around in something that's 400 wheel for a while. It's a lot of fun.
So, Mike, you had asked earlier about like six cylinder builds in the future, and we kind of went around that and came back. You
mean I squirreled?
No. Well, we both did, because it was like, well, it was a crossroads. It's like, do you go left and talk about the Fairmont, or do you go right and talk about the upcoming turbo inline 6 build? Or but I have thought about it for long term, like the 5-year, 7-year plan is to like, what if from this point forward, like every build I do is only has a 6-cylinder in it, I would not. I would not pigeonhole myself into inline 6s either. Like, what if I stuffed a 2.7 liter EcoBoost into another Fairmont down the road, or like a Mercury Fox Mercury Cougar or something, Like I always thought, I'm wearing a Buick Turbo V6 shirt, right? So taking like a new 3.5 EcoBoost or 2.7 and throwing it in, like, so what would, if we could rewrite history, what if, so Buick comes out with the Turbo V6 and then the Ford's like, well, screw them, I'm going to put 2 turbochargers on a 3.5 liter and stuff it in, this LTD, or whatever. Like that's, I love resto mod stuff. I love the taking today's technology and throwing it in yesterday's, platform. And I don't know, I just feel like,
for sure,
to the point we were talking about, like going to the car shows and seeing the same time 8 times over all the LS swaps, like if I could get someone to stop and look at my car and even ask, so what is this? Like I feel like I would take way more pride in that than the person who just kind of pokes in at the second Camaro.
At the LS swap.
Yeah. But
yeah. And dude, so you talk about the 2.7. Robert Lee, who owned NWA Streetworks, him and I had talked about doing the 2.7 in a, I don't know, it was rear-wheel drive, 80s car, and just for that reason, it was an SN95 Mustang. We had talked about it because, like, it would be so different, but it would be so lightweight, and those motors are good for 400, 450, pretty easy with a good turbo. Like, why not?
Like it's basically bolt on. Well, like the interesting thing at the 2.7s, they're like the 2.3 EcoBoost in our Mustang that we have. There's no exhaust manifold. The heads are shaped to where the turbo flange bolts right to the head.
Oh wow!
And so the 2.7s are like that. So, and I want to say the 2.7s are the tighter, like degree V. So think about how like tight and compact those things would be, like, and throw that into like a Pinto or something.
Yeah, dude, I like that kind of stuff. That's my jam. I'm a fan of that.
Yep, aluminum blocks too. Like they'd be stupid light.
Yeah, and like that car, your weight bias isn't going to be crazy, and something small like that, and again, 400 horsepower. That's a bunch.
Yeah.
Because what do you think the Fairmont makes now? 300.
My older brother has asked me this exact same question. So no, I don't think it makes 300. In short, so the factory, I was telling him, I was like, well, I've seen anywhere from factory numbers listed at 139 horsepower to 141, anywhere between 139 and 141, right? So
that's crazy low.
And so assuming, well, the torque numbers were pretty decent. I think the torque was like mid 200s, like 240 or something, or 260 maybe. So I feel like with everything I did to it, disabling the smog equipment, porting the stock intake, a little bit bigger carb, the new GT40P heads, and then I ported the exhaust side of those. It's got full BBK headers. It's got a full exhaust all the way back. Between all that, like I feel like I remember when people were just putting GT40P heads on the fuel injected 5 liters. A lot of them were always saying like that's good for 40 horsepower. Just I mean that's 40 horsepower all day long. So knowing that my starting point's not the same as a roller block EFI motor, like I don't think the heads are just worth 40 horsepower. But when you add that whole composite together, I feel like it's probably a 50 horsepower combination, I think.
Yep.
So if I had to like, well, this is exactly what I'm doing. Just calling my own shot because no one can prove me wrong or right without a dyno, right? I would call it 191 horsepower at the crank and, maybe 300 foot-pounds of torque.
That's cool. How much? So it was probably a 273 gear car to start with, right?
Yeah, it was either 273 or they actually had an even lower or higher.
Oh my God.
It was like at 247.
Oh, can you imagine how shitty that car would be?
I explained go back and watch my 0 to 60 bit bone stock, and I explained it to my older brother yesterday. It was like the sensation of when you're driving a golf cart and you just mash the gas and you take off in a golf cart. That was the sensation that the Fairmont was because it was so quiet. Mash the gas is like just like this smooth, like hey, but we're gonna take our time.
Yep, but now 70 to 100, it was probably felt pretty fast, or 50 to 70. That's one good thing about the gears like that. But I will say, a lot of guys. So I had a buddy, Aaron Mick, in high school that had a notch Fox body, and it's 302, same basic setup as yours. It had an E303 cam, and he went from a 273 to a 373, and we thought he had lit the world on fire. It was like, this is the fastest car ever, because like it just had serious acceleration change.
If I could change one thing about the Fairmont, I'd love to have a T5 in it because it's got 327s now. I put a Lincoln Mark 7 rear end in it, so it's got an 8.8 327 gear, track lock, rear disc brakes on it, and it's kind of screaming when you're going about, like, it's obnoxious at past 65. Like 70, I can tolerate 72 miles an hour, but I think if I had a 5-speed in that overdrive, like it would be it'd be like the perfect combo. So
that's awesome. What trans is in it now?
It's a C4.
Yeah, that's right.
I found that Gremlin I was talking about earlier. So
oh my God, that's gorgeous.
That's So think about like what the Pinto equivalent of this would be with that 2.7
yes
EcoBoost.
Yes. Yeah, down and can handle, and like small turbos and some spools. Nico says 3 pedals for the win. Yes, he is correct, 100%. He drives a Violent small block Chevrolet Malibu. That car is so cool. Malibu? No, I just screwed it up. It's not a Malibu either. Maybe it is. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been too much time. I need to have him back on too to tell some funny stories. He's hilarious. All right, so that kind of gets us through the Fairmont. You got some other project Fairmont and the truck, but you've got also a Tacoma, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's my daily single cab, 4-wheel drive, 4-cylinder, 5-speed Tacoma, and it's stupid reliable, so pretty hard to beat. Yeah, with 2-inch lift, rough country struts, and did the JBA upper control arms on it. So, yeah, honestly, if all things go the way I want, hopefully somebody who watches this show either right now or later and wants to buy my Fairmont, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Free up some.
I wish Streetcar Chronicles would. He has a great channel. He's on tomorrow night too. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be It
would look so rad next to the Malibu he's got, dude.
Is it his Malibu like the 78 to 83 body style? Because I love those cars just as much as the Fairmonts. G bodies are pretty awesome. Obviously, I wouldn't be wearing this shirt if I didn't like G bodies, but
what's interesting. So let's stay on the future of hot rodding for a second. Do you think we'll see more as guys my age or as younger guys, younger 30s? Do you think those guys will do more 2.7, 3.5 EcoBoost swaps. Do you think we'll see more of that, or do you think it'll stay LSLT and Coyote?
Well, I'd even lean. I would probably say the LS and maybe Ford's Godzilla more than Coyote, actually, because what Ford's doing a poor job of is making their motors swappable. It's the brains behind them that's making it really difficult and out of reach and stupid expensive. Fat Fender Garage is another YouTube channel. I don't know if you've seen his stuff, but I like his work. He does a lot of Ford builds, and they put like one of those Raptor 3.5 EcoBoosts in like a Ford Ranger, and but they were just saying like, man, it's just stupid difficult getting the like if you don't have the dashboard, like someone once basically, it sounds like hyperbole, but it's pretty close to being true. Like if you don't have the dashboard to go along with your motor, you're like almost screwed because of all the things that are so interconnected with. And so I would say pushrod motors are always going to be, to answer your question, I think it's going to be hard to overcome. The dual overhead cam scene still has a long ways to go to be more accessible.
Well, and just because of the size too, you start talking about putting a 4-valve in a Fox body. I mean, like you literally have no room after that. It's obviously doable. Coyotes have been in Fox bodies for as long as they've been out, but like there's just no space. You're not gonna change a set of header gaskets at the track on that car. It's just there's no room.
The flip side to that conversation though is like that's why it's appealing to me, is because it's easier to be a pioneer, or you could potentially be the person. I'd rather be the person starting in the trend than jumping in on the trend after it's been going for 12 years, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And it would be really cool to pop the hood on something that everybody's going to be like, oh man, here's another turbo LS, and you pop the hood and it's some twin turbo EcoBoost. I think that would be that'd be a lot of fun. And we have a 2.3 in the 2.3 Lima in the MG, and we had discussed swapping to a later model 2.3 from like a wrecked Mustang or something like that, just because you end up with 30 years, 40 years of technology gain by doing that. Yeah, I would. I mean, even if for whatever reason my Fairmont, I'm holding on to it longer, like it even crossed my mind. I love our 2.3 liter EcoBoost Mustang, and I was like, man, I think that'd even be a cool swap. Like, yeah, I don't like how 4-cylinders sound. I mean, but yeah, you just need more. You need more turbo.
Did I lose you?
For a second there.
Okay.
You just need more turbo noise for 4-cylinders to sound good.
Yeah. Well, for anything, it doesn't matter. Like the answer is always more turbo. So.
Yeah. I popped the hood, so I took the old truck to a Cars and Coffee yesterday morning, and it was like for 4-wheel drive overlanding stuff, but we were wrapping up our toy drive, and so I'm parked in the back. Hood is kind of cracked about this much, just where you can kind of see the turbo, and all these people are talking, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a VS Racing 7875, and they were like, oh man, that's a huge turbo, and I was like, no, it's small. Look at it, it's very tiny, and the guys were like, man, yeah, but and so they were talking about all these factory cars with 50 millimeter factory turbo. I'm like, I guess it is kind of big, but it needs more turbo noise. Everything needs more. Like it doesn't spool loud enough. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually have a loaner truck right now, and I think it's a 2.7, and I could not get it to make the fun turbo noises.
Yeah, I think you have to take a vacuum line off or something. That's always a good way to do it. Just pull the vacuum lines from the wastegates. That'll work every time. So let's talk EV swaps, because everybody's kind of talking about it here in the chats. 815 brought it up. He had a picture on his Instagram of some of the EV swaps that were at PRI. I feel like the kids that are right now that are 12 and 13 and 15, I think that's going to be a big deal when they're like 25 and 30 because of the acceleration that you can get with an EV setup.
Yeah, it's a whole different sensation for sure. I've ridden in a Tesla, and it's it's insane.
Yes, Jonathan Montgomery has one, and he was like, man, you got to ride in this thing. I'm like, oh no, it's fine. And so we went behind on this little side road, and like eye blistering, $100 on the dash, grab it if you can get, type of stuff. That car was fast. And then you hit the brakes, they stop, and you turn, and it does
I
the same
think
thing.
the kids you're talking about that are, say, 14, 15, it'll be interesting to see what they're like. Because I know I've got, like, kids of some of my cousins who, they might be second year in college right now. Like, I remember his dad saying, my cousin saying, yeah, we bought like, he doesn't want to drive. He just would rather stay at, like, his socializing is, being on the headset playing Call of Duty or whatever.
Yep.
So he has no reason to really get out and go. He's like, we bought him a brand new, like, JK, and he's still just like, I don't want to drive. And so I would actually think, and just thinking about the kids like I'm in my welding class with, who are like graduating high school, like, a guy just he had a hole in the exhaust of his Panther, and he was welding up like a dump out the side, like under the passenger door. And I'm like, I think if you're into cars, I think I don't know. I think it would be interesting to figure out what the kids who can't drive yet but are into cars, like I was back in, reading my car crafts, what they would be into long term when by the time they're our age. I think that's really interesting, because I would suspicion that. Because I think I'm close to your opinion, Mike, on EVs. Like, I'm kind of in between. Like, I don't hate them, and I'm not going to fight them, but I don't like love them. I'm not convinced they're the best next solution. Like, they are a solution to the problem that we have, but I don't think they're the only solution. Yeah. And so I just feel like if you're a car guy, I think fast forward 20 years, you're probably still into gas. I think there's a good chance you're just as likely to be into the gas stuff or diesel stuff as you are EV, but I don't know. We'll see.
And it's funny, everybody, like, you talk about a 20-year thing, you're like, man, we're going to be so far ahead in 20 years. And then it's like, we're still fucking around with 79 Ford Fairmonts.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
Or another way to say it is like this loaner truck we have. So it's got, this 10-speed transmission that's supposed to be the bee's knees, and it's got this supposed to be the super light aluminum block V6 that is supposed to be a lot lighter but makes the same power. And we got, on the way down and back to Wichita this weekend, we got 17.5 miles to the gallon. My 95 F-150 with the 300, which, keep in mind, was actually the heaviest motor of that era of truck. It was heavier than the V8s.
Yep. And
with my 5-speed, I probably would have got 7, in its prime when it was tuned. Fuel injectors were clean, everything. It was probably the same mileage I was getting back then. And it's like, what have we done as an industry? If that's 25-year difference between, or am I doing my math right? Yeah, 25 years. In my suspicion to that, or my hypothesis to why we haven't gotten any better at it, is everything's so bloated. Yeah. Like, if you took the cab of my truck, like if you took that same power plant and put it in my truck, I bet you it would get 22 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the only difference between those two, this is unfair because one's a 4x4, one's 2-wheel drive. But point is, I think there's so much crap we shove in these trucks now. The cabs are bigger, and that's nicer and everything, but like, they're heavier. And then, like, I mean, just the dashboard, right? So my 95 F-150 to the windshield, it's probably like that. But these new vehicles, it's like I can't even fit on this. So how much crap are we shoving underneath that dashboard that we really need to? And that's my hypothesis, is they're just stupid, weighted down and heavy and everything.
Well, and like, you start thinking about safety, and like, okay, now you've got door bars where the doors weigh 85 pounds a piece, where your doors may weigh 55 pounds because they're just steel. Now they've got all these door bars and all that kind of stuff, and all of the extra components that go along that you just don't have. Yeah. So one thing that I don't talk about much is hypermiling. I think it would be really fun to dive into that some, like with tuning a car for its, most efficient, but that comes with coast to coast kind of driving, which is also an interest of mine. So it'd be cool to be able to see at 75 or 80 miles an hour what kind of mileage you can get out of a well prepped, I would venture to say late 90s Ford Thunderbird with a late model 2.7 turbo, like if it would handle that kind of abuse at 100 for that kind of time, like what kind of mileage could you get out of that car? I think we'll see a lot of people kind of leaning that way too. And the hard part is, with as good as Facebook is and Instagram is showing what you're into to you. I could be into that and see everything about that next week, but you're maybe into something different and you don't see any of the stuff that I get to. I think that's probably a big difference. Where you had 8 car magazines when we were kids, now you have 8,000 car groups that are talking about different stuff.
Yep. Some of that stuff gets pretty scary too when those algorithms start lining things up for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. There's been so many times where I'm like, man, everybody is building a death cart, and then you really step out and look, and you're like, there's 3 of us within 3 states. I guess really not everybody is building one. 815 says, I look at EV swaps as a business opportunity personally, like building a small rear-wheel drive vehicle, Miata, for drift or burnouts. I think it'd be really cool. The struggle I feel like you would have is anything that, until the battery technology is better, you're going to have a hard time, campaigning a real electric car, but once the battery technology is better with regenerative braking and things like that, maybe you could go a little longer.
Well, and then the big thing right now are the electric motor truck scene, Rivian and stuff. And I saw some study out how after the tow test, or maybe it's the new Lightning or something, but it basically proved to be a 60% drain on the battery. The battery drains 60% faster. And it's like, yeah, that's the only thing that I think is that's another reason why, like I said before, why it's not the only solution to help fix the problem that we're in. It's a fine alternative for a lot of applications and it makes sense, but it's not the only one. And that's my frustration with the whole conversation is nobody seems to be talking about what else. It's always this pinning one versus the other. It's like, I hate change. I just want to know what I know. It's a gas only. And then there's like, hey, let's come eat some granola with me. It's electric vehicles only. And it's like, yeah, no, I mean, neither of them are perfect. And we can't keep guzzling the gas out of the ground. Like, it's not going to last forever. I've always been a big fan.
At some point, the last dinosaur died.
Right. I've always loved the idea of biodiesel. As long as we're going to be in this obese nation that we are, there's plenty of fryer grease to go around.
Yeah, I mean, so I found a guy on TikTok the other day, and I don't remember his channel. I thought about it as you were saying something a while ago, but he is converting logging trucks, and so it'll be in-wheel motors and a diesel generator. So you still use the diesel engine, but you can run it at the peak RPM to make the most, convert the most power, and then your electric motors are what's actually driving the vehicle. So he went into all this stuff, and that's interesting to me. I think the Prius and Honda Insight were on the right track with that. I just think they packaged it in such a boring car that you just lost it.
It's almost as if that was another government regulations. Like, yeah, you can do it, but this thing's got to look like dog shit.
Yeah. Well, they're like, oh, it's got to be the best aerodynamics and things like that. No, and that's what Elon has right. Make it a fun car, make it fast. People, I mean, what's your commute? Your commute's a little different now, but what was your commute before the job change?
It was 35 minutes. So it was 29 miles, 35 minutes.
Yeah. So you start figuring if you have a 200-mile range on a car, say 250-mile range, you can drive almost all week without charging. Yeah. You're probably going to plug it in Thursday night for your drive on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you plug it in Sunday night for your drives during the week.
Well, in my old commute, the parking garage had charging stations too.
Yeah.
So
and that's a straight EV car. I mean, what could the car have done if you had a small 1.3, 1.5 4-cylinder and a larger electric motor? Could you have driven all month on a tank of gas? Save money, more money for car parts.
I've got a coworker. He's got a Chevy Volt or Bolt. I don't remember which is which, but it does that. It's got a gas generator motor. I've ridden in it a couple times, and it's kind of weird because it's because super dead quiet, but then when the motor kicks on to charge, it's running at a high RPM, but you're like, you're seeing the speedometer fluctuating things, and it's just like you can hear like,
You're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
You pull up to a stoplight, it's like 4,000 RPM. Oh God! Trying to launch it, straight pipe that baby. Let's go. Yeah, 815. Thanks for derailing us on the EV,
hey,
jackass.
Like a hater pipe, right? Like just
just right out of the hood. Screw it. Let's go. Screw you, Greta.
Look at me. I got an EV.
That'd be great, man. That would be the way to go. I think it would be fun to see kind of the conversion. But you're right. It's like, hot rod scene is big gas or electric. There's a company in, I think it's England, that's called Ava Electric, AVA, and they're taking old cars like Ferraris and Land Rovers and Defender 90s and things like that, and doing like a full EV conversion. It'd be cool to see that as a gasoline hybrid type setup.
Well, here's another example, right? Like, so natural gas, for instance. I have a buddy of mine I graduated high school and college with, and then he went on to go into the oil business. He got his master's. He's in the oil business and lives out in the Permian Basin area, like Midland area of Texas, like West Texas. And we drove out there a couple of years ago to visit. And it was actually a Route 66 tour we were doing, but we diverted to go visit him. And you see all these oil fields, and they got these flames burning. And so we were asking about, like, why? What's the deal? What's the deal with all just these flames burning out in the open? He goes, oh, well, that's that's the byproduct natural gas that's being produced by all these oil wells, and it's like the most efficient use of it is just burning it right then and there. It's like, because there's so much of it, like we can't like. And it's like, so there's another resource that we could be fueling our cars with, right? That's plentiful and exists somewhere, but we're not figuring out how to capture it, right? So that's like the example of like, I get sick of the conversation of gas versus electric when it's like, why can't somebody be spending time like coming up with a clever way to like capture that resource that we're just right now, it's too expensive for them to bottle up, so we just burn it just for the sake of burning it.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. And maybe we'll see some of that in the future. I think that once people have been used to what it is, because there were a lot of cars early on, teens and 20s, that were electric, but it just became cheaper to produce gasoline engines once they figured it out. Like, are we in a stage now where the next 10 years we're figuring out electric, and the next 10 years after that's going to be natural gas? I mean, there's already tons of companies that run natural gas rigs for their fleet stuff. Like, why hasn't that taken off?
Yeah. Well, my first exposure to Fairmonts, ironically, were my cousins, and my uncle worked for the city of Wichita, and so every time there was like a mass sell-off of properties, he would always buy like cars off like the fleet and stuff. And back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, he had like 2, maybe 3 4-door Fairmonts that were all propane powered Fairmonts. Yeah. They were all inline 6, and so we always joked they were, my cousins hated driving them. They were slow, and you had to only fill up at home from the propane tank. But it's like, look, and it, like, rock crawlers use it. Rock crawlers love to do propane powered stuff because if you tip over, there's no like gas isn't spilling everywhere, right? Yeah. Like gasoline. So I don't know. It seems like just like the electric vehicle was killed like in the 90s, suspiciously, it's like, why didn't somebody keep working on perfecting and making better propane fuel technology,
Yeah. Streetcar Chronicles says, God, I hope not. I don't know what he was referencing there. He said, I don't mind the electric stuff, but there needs to be a place for both. I feel like they're going to kill the combustion engine altogether. And that's what concerns me too. Or gas will become so expensive that you won't be able to enjoy your gasoline engine because they'll have, taxed it out of the market, or they'll, slow production. So they push EV stuff, What's funny is you always feel like, and this is probably a little more political than I'd like to be, but, at the end of the day, everybody is pushing their own kind of deal, so they may be really, EV is the way to go, and so as a politician, you can make changes and you can push for that, very strategically.
I also think what we lose sight of, as much as I've traveled internationally and driven internationally, like we have it so good here. Like gas is stupid cheap compared to like when we went on our Iceland trip. I mean, I don't know. It's probably in the $8 a gallon range is what we were talking. Same as like Australia a decade ago, and it's like. And then the other thing, like when we traveled to Europe, a lot more diesel cars, but like when I drove through Italy and seeing how many people drive there, it's like quit making this out to be that the environment's being crapped on because of how many Americans drive. Like the Italians are just as bad. And then my day job is architecture, and honestly, the construction industry consumes way more oil than the automotive. Yeah. Like everybody just knows it's the most common to everybody. What you know is everybody knows someone who drives a car, right? But the reality of it is like it's the at best number 2 or number 3 like worst part of it. So if we focused our efforts in the right spots, like and figured out how to transport material and make materials cheaper, or I mean consuming less petroleum, like we could have a much deeper, longer, harder effect than I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like the automotive industry should just stop what they're trying to do altogether. Right. We need to be attacking it from all ends, but
there's a lot more ways, a lot better ways to attack that problem than making gas expensive and making EV the big deal. Gary Mathis on YouTube says Uncle Tony's Garage feels like the government has intentionally screwed up the auto parts market, and they probably have a big stance in that. And again, it goes back to people have their agenda they want to do because it's important to them.
None of us really know, right? But I don't think that surprises me one bit that of all people, Uncle Tony's Garage has a perspective like that, I guess.
All right, so let's get off of that stuff. Let's talk about fun stuff. I feel like we were on that a long time just because electric vehicles and hybrids, really hybrid technology interests me very, very much. I think that to me, when I sold cars, I was our leading technology, hybrid technology sales guy at Toyota. And it's because I really like that. I think that makes sense for a lot of folks. It would have been interesting to see what GM could have done with the Tahoe setup, where they had the hybrid setup in the Tahoes and Suburbans. I think that would have been cool, maybe in some Camaros and stuff like that. But what else do we want to talk about? Let's talk about fun stuff. Let's talk about the future of your channel, which maybe you hit on a little bit with the truck. And then let's talk about the rat rod, though, because that's near and dear to our hearts. I love rat rod stuff because they're so individual. What are you kind of thinking? Do you have something kind of picked out? Do you have a year range you want to start with?
No. Well, one of our common friends in Central States automotive YouTubers, Chad Ehrlich over at Nobody's Show, he has that killer yard. So I picture myself just, I'm always the guy, like I don't want to make things harder for myself than they need to be. So I know not probably all those trucks out there have titles to them. So I would probably narrow it down first by like, hey, which ones of these do you have titles for? And then then go from there and make a selection out of that. But again, crystal ball, if we're projecting out, like ultimately I look at YouTube at this point in my life as like a pre-marketing wing to something else. And I think a lot of people should think of it that way. Like you can make money off of YouTube, but I think the strongest application is when it's like, you're creating your own advertising for some other product that you're making. And I think ideally I'd like to, I have this business model of here in Kansas, like, so there's old grain trucks in everybody's pasture or shed, or, some are still driving, some are out to rest that they don't have a use for. And so the good thing about it is they have great patinas but very little body damage because they get used twice a year, right? If they're still, right. Like we dust it off for wheat harvest, and then whether you're cutting soybeans, milo, or corn in the fall, that's the second. Or if we got to go pick a plow up from the auction, we'll throw a plow in the back of it, But like these trucks don't get used that much, and so ideally, I'd love to I want that to be my shtick, or my go build some big time ranchers got this old wheat truck out in this pasture, and like go build them a custom, rat rod out of the thing.
Yeah.
And scrap out, if they got old machinery in the pasture, scrap the stuff out or pluck things off of, help them clean up their yards and stuff, and build them a custom, build them a custom ride too.
That's cool. So a lot of the, Steve Darnell was on your guys as a guest. So a lot of his stuff I think would play into that too. That's what I always liked about his channel. Is, or his show. He was always going in and trying to figure, all that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, I think there's something fun about the picking part of it too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, dude. Well, let's kind of wind it down. Probably another 5 or 6 minutes. What's something that we hadn't covered that we probably should have made a note on?
Well, we covered the future of the channel, the turbo build, and maybe building everything with 6 cylinders thing. Which, by the way, so if my business ever took off, I would probably stop worrying about really what the channel was about. Like the whole everything's got to have a 6-cylinder. It'd be more about building something for somebody else. But
fun and cool stuff. Yeah
we talked about the Tacoma. Okay, so if somebody buys my Fairmont soon, I do think to bridge the gap between the Turbo 6 build, rat rod build, because winter's here, I want to be able to park my Tacoma in the garage for the harshest parts, right? I think to help bridge the gap, I'm going to resurrect the Rat Rod Radio Flyer for a bit, and then I want to do like some off-road bumper builds for my Tacoma.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, dude, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. You've really been a big inspiration for the channel. I've asked you tons and tons of stuff. So for everybody that's watching, y'all go follow his stuff. I did not link it in the description. I will after this, but go over find it right now. It's spelled just like it's spelled on the bottom of his thing. God, dude, it's like backward on the bottom there. So go find that. I'm going to stay live for a minute and go over some stuff we have for the shop. I just want to say thanks, dude. I really appreciate you coming on.
Hey, I appreciate once again just the opportunity.
Uh-oh, now he froze. Shit. Nope, he's not back yet.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I kind of kicked my Ethernet cable.
There you go.
But I know I bailed on you a couple of weeks ago. I had a work trip that kind of conflicted with, which I should have told you about off camera what that was about. But
hey, we got plenty of time. Yeah. That'll be a good reason to have either me on yours or yours back on here.
So anyway, good luck with the 12 pods of Christmas. This is a good way to start it off, and I appreciate it. And then I just appreciate you, Mike, for being who you are, because I know like from day one when we hit, like your personality type was just like by the time we finished the first conversation, it's like, we just as well had been, following each other for a year and a half.
Yeah, dude, it's a ton of fun. Hey, listen, I do want to see you in April. The second weekend, we're racing Friday at Mocan. We're driving to Sedalia, Missouri for Saturday night cruise night, and then we're driving back and racing again Sunday. So whatever you got to bring, man, bring the Mustang. All right. I'm sure the Fairmont will be gone by then. Long
probably. And I wouldn't pass tech in the Fairmont anyway.
Well, I hate potatoes.
It sweats too much horsepower right now. So
that's exactly right. All right, dude. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Bye. All right, guys. So I want to thank Grant. That was awesome. I really appreciate him coming on. He's a great dude. His channel is awesome. Just so you guys know, I have learned a ton, and I love the offbeat hot rodding. I think that makes a ton of sense because he's taking cars that aren't necessarily in the spotlight and building them that way. Now, let's flip to some other stuff. What the 12 pods of Christmas means for everybody that's still here. We're going to be live every day that I can be. I guess I can talk to the camera and not at the screen anymore. So we're going to be live every day that I can. If there is a day, I have 1 or 2 guests that have committed to being backups in case some of the folks that we've committed aren't able to do that, to be on for some reason. Let me pop in here and get you my list. It's ever growing. We are currently looking. I've got about 8 different people I have messages out to right now that I'm trying to get to commit to the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. I'd like to hear back from them. There have been a ton of folks in the comments over here that I have now added your name to the list as potential. I don't want to ask too many people and then have to cancel on somebody. So I want to see what these people say. We have it booked every day until the 18th. Steven is probably going to be on the 18th telling his story. Yep. Oh, hey, thanks, A15. I see you said good show. Thanks, Matt. Thanks so much. Tomorrow night we have Ryan Wing with Streetcar Chronicles. Guys, go look at their channel. Super cool stuff. The Malibu is probably one of my favorite cars right now. Has been for the last 4 or 5 years. It's got, and his Malibu has, Lexan scoop. It just complete street car stuff. He is definitely, his channel follows a lot of the streetcar builds, a lot of the streetcar racing, which is a big thing in our world. Tuesday night, we have Jason and Earl, who were drag and drive competitors on Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0. And then we have, they are also Trailblazer SS owners. Both of them have Trailblazer SS. So that'll be kind of cool to kind of dive off into that, being that the new daily for me is a Trailblazer 4200. So I've asked, staying on the Trailblazer thing, the 4200 Atlas series, if you've watched Richard Holdner for a while, he's done a full build on that. That is in the new 04 Trailblazer that I'll daily. So it's interesting to watch him build that. And then also I've asked Calvin Nelson and his dad to be on one of the 4 nights that are available. So I'm waiting to hear back. His channel is Nivlac57. If you could drop over to Nivlac57 and make a comment on some video that you'd like to see him on our podcast, I think that would maybe help nudge that along. The struggle I'm having as we get closer to Christmas is people's schedules. It's hard to, that's why we stopped on the 23rd and actually started today, was because I wanted to have the chance that we weren't going to run into 12 pods of Christmas on Christmas Eve, because we don't want to do that to folks for sure. That makes it hard. Matt Monroe is going to be on Wednesday night, the 15th. Wednesday night, the 15th. He's, I have here my notes, he's a Moparian. So that'll be kind of interesting to talk about Mopars with him. We helped him put together a Gen 3 Hemi. He actually did all the work. I stood there and watched and gave him pointers from my Shipbox LS builds, which have never been down to the block. So I was basically probably giving bad advice. Then Thursday, we have David Williams, who's a cannonballer. He participated in the musket ball, which was the 50th anniversary of the cannonball. It was with cars less than 100 horsepower. So they competed in that in a Jetta wagon that was made up like an organ transplant or organ transport vehicle. Super cool idea. So they all ran across the country. There's 27 cars. The Bryce Mays and Matt Dennison podcast was on the musket ball thing. Then Gonzo Prius was on telling that same story as well. Carl Balzer, Balzer, of Hidden Motorsports is on 12/17, whatever night that is, Friday, I think. He has Klaus the Barbarian. If you've watched the channel for a while, you know that we parked next to them at Cletus and Cars in Indy. That car makes 1,200 horsepower, twin turbo LS. A lady ran over the top of it a couple months ago. They completely rebuilt the car. Same BMW 3 Series chassis, or different BMW, but 3 Series chassis, and just super cool channel. Dude has, I think they've got 11 or 1,200 subscribers. They need many, many more. They attend so many events a year. That car is super cool. And then, so 12/18, I think I'll probably have Steven on, or maybe a panel of guests. I think would be a lot of fun. I'm trying to figure out a time I can work in. I've asked too many people to commit to asking anyone else for a minute, but I'd like to have Wasted Talent Fabrications on, and I'd like to have CP the Tool Addict back on. I think maybe 12/18 would be a good night for that, to do a panel, hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that, talking about turbos and nitrous and things like that. I'd like to have a full setup that we can run folks through as they can come in. 12/19, I need your help big time. Lyle Barnett is a inspiration of mine. He is a total badass. I've been after him for a couple weeks to get him on. We've had some scheduling conflicts. He actually wasn't going to race the Snowbird Nationals and ended up getting a ride. So he went to that the night he was supposed to be on here. So they traveled down. I'd love Lyle Barnett, Barnett. If you could tag him in some social media posts asking him, hey, heard you were going to be on 12/19. Can't wait to hear your story. Something like that. Really get him hyped up. He's an awesome dude. He races super fast cars. He races street cars. He's built all kinds of stuff. So I would love for him to be able to tell the story to all of us. And then that leads us into the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. We may end up doing another panel on that. And then the last bit of info here I'll go into, and then I'm going to shut it out. Wasted would be a great, Rich GT350 said Wasted would be a good guest. I think his stuff, I've been watching a lot of his stuff lately. He's building the LS Swap 350Z. I think that'd be a cool build to follow along with. Last thing I want to talk about is I got booted from Facebook, as I said earlier, for my comments to 815 LSX swaps. It really pissed me off. Pissed me off so much that I may not go back to Facebook for a while. I found a new app called Throttle, Throdle, D as a dog. And I've been posting over there. It's a very small automotive app. They have big things coming. We've been messaging back and forth, or I've been messaging back and forth with the founder lady, who is actually European. And so what they have planned for that is really neat. And I think it's, a lot of times we keep Facebook because of the groups, because of Marketplace, and I think that may be able to replace most of that. It won't always be as big as Facebook because it's automotive only, but right now would be a good time for you to get in because it is so small. You can make a big dent and be a big contributor to that app. So Throttle, Throdle. I'm on there. Obviously, it's under Narcoleptic Customs. Right now, they'll only let you post videos that are 1 minute long. So that doesn't quite work for bringing our podcast and live streams over there. But they have an update that will land in January that she says should fix that. So hopefully we can do some of the podcasting and live streaming like this over on Throttle as well. So that's it for me. We've got a busy week. We had a Christmas parade Saturday night. We've got Tour of Trees on Wednesday, then the Matt Monroe podcast right after that. So thank you so much for staying. I appreciate it, guys. We had a ton of fun. Yes, 815 asked Throttle, and he spelled it right. I'm going to put it here on the screen for everyone watching. Everybody that's listening to this as a podcast later on, it is Throd as in dog, LE. Throttle, pretty cool setup. There's, I think, sub 1,000 users right now. So it'd be really cool to jump in early. So Cortez, I saw you earlier, bud. I meant to say, hey, I'm sorry. We were trying to run through there. Grant is a super cool dude. His channel really pushed me to start going, I would say hard on Narcoleptic. Just really good content, well-edited videos. He's helped me a ton with our editing. So, all right. That's it, guys. I'm out of here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Man, this is going to be, we're going to cross 100 podcasts during this trip. It's going to be wild. I hope you guys are ready. I'm going to be working. I'm off tomorrow. I'm going to be working on the backdrop here. Going to throw some Hot Wheels and some signs. Be watching on Instagram. I'll be posting all the updates all day. All right, bye.